we can say. It was going to demolish for a development project. We can, very nicely say. It was more than this, of course. And well, a lot of people agreed to disagree on this decision. And it was for the first time in a very, very long time we got together. And there was so much enthusiasm, so much creativity, so much humor, so many beautiful things. And I have to say that's when I had the trauma after the Gezi Park events, because like nothing has changed. And my hopes were broken. I was very, very disappointed, very heartbroken. And I think many, many people feel the same. And it was a quite trauma for it. And I said, okay, I cannot do this anymore here. And I decided to move to another country. And it was the Netherlands, by coincidence, I can say. Well, I had a master's, and now I'm in a completely different path again and again. And I'm describing I was describing myself as a fool with tools or jack of all trades. And I enjoy teaching and I enjoy sharing. I love humor. I love comedians. I love intelligence. I love ways of being. I love ways of seeing and doing things. I love to observe these things. And I might say I have an awesome awe. It's quite a religious it has a quite religious connotation in Christianity, I think. But I mean, for me in Turkish, like it's just being amazed of something. Well, nowadays I'm thinking actually I would really still curious about what kind of a scientist I would have been if I was pursuing my being a genetic engineer dream. But I think my favorite thing on earth would be right now, if I had the talent, being a stand-up comedian. Probably. So let's move. Can I take this up? Yes. So nowadays I'm defining myself as a multipotentialite. And this is a word we come up with Emily Watnick. I mean, all these links are in the source list, so you don't have to take notes. And she's saying a multipotentialite is someone with many interests and creative pursuits. It's a mouthful to say. It might help you if you break it up into 3 parts: multi, potential, etc. Well, I mean, you can also use any other words you want, but it's important, and you don't have to share, because I mean, most of my friends think that multipotentialite is a very lame word. Why am I using this? And I was like, I don't care. This is really the thing that I found, which describes me the best. Well, I would recommend for you to have something like that. You don't have to share with anyone if you think it's lame, but it's important to know how can you describe yourself. Well, I mean, they are in that talk. She was talking about 3 superpowers of multipotentialites, or people like this. You can call them like Renaissance people. They are calling polymaths. There are small differences in between, but they are mostly underneath the terminology multipotentialite. The first one is they can synthesize ideas easily. They can combine more than 2 fields, and they can be in the intersection of that. And in my opinion, this is where the new ideas came from. And they can learn very, very quickly. It's like when they get interested in something, they just put their hands on everything they can find and observe and just suck it up. And they I mean, the most important about this, they are not afraid to begin something, because they have been doing this for a long time. For me, like, I changed my whole life. Like, I was I came from a very corporate setting. I decided to become a fashion designer. I decided to move from my country. So I changed it again and again, and I'm not afraid to change again. You know, I know how to deal with that. And again, it's something about adaptability. So I can become whatever, because I have a very different skill set or background. I can become very handy in various situations. I can be an Inspector Gadget, or I can be a James Bond, or I can be a shapeshifter. I don't know. And I think this is very, because we have now complex problems and it needs complex thinking or creative thinking, speculative thinking, different thinkings to solve these. This is, and also I want to just to give a little bit information about algorithms here, because I'm going to talk about them a lot. Algorithm is a sequence of instructions, and I believe we are made of star stuff, but we are also made from algorithms, like machines. Everything biologically or psychologically can be described as algorithms. Getting hungry, you know, getting scared, what happens in your brain, what happens in your body. The only difference is like we kind of generate these on spot and as isolated incidents. And well, you have your own authentic algorithm. And I believe decision-making and problem-solving are processes as well. So they are made of algorithms as well. Creativity is a process. So there might be also, you know, algorithms of creativity. Here, intuition, I want to talk a little bit, because intuition is the ability to understand something instinctively without the need of conscious reasoning. And I believe also it can be I see it as a process as well, and I also claim that it's made of algorithms. And when I say intuition, I'm not talking about only the animalistic instincts or things like that. I'm also talking about something, for example, a mathematical intuition. You know a 0, you know 1, they don't exist. You know, they are numbers, but we know conceptually what a 0 is, what 1 is. And it's beautiful, mathematical intuition. And nowadays, yeah, all science departments and everyone is kind of going to this direction. I mean, at least some of them having intuitive, or let's say a different view on intuition. And for example, we can maybe see in the daily life, in our daily lives, like this is going wild with user design, user experiences. Like for example, you are trying to build your website in a way that people can intuitively move in. You know, it's easy to, this is the menu, this is where I should hit if I want to go to the next page, etc., etc. And I said, intuition is my basis of my decision making and my creative thinking. It's not following my heart or gut, as some my cultures may suggest, or it's not something pink and fluffy that appears out of nowhere. It's my curation of knowledge with the data I have gathered from my surroundings. It's not magic, it's not spiritual, it's not vitamin deficiency, it's just being me, myself, and I. And in my thesis, before I graduate from fashion strategy MA, my graduation research was about, again, intuition, but it started with this code. It's, I don't know if you know the series, it's the science fiction television series, Humans. And in the series, it explores the themes of artificial intelligence and robotics, focusing on the social, cultural, and psychological impact of the invention of robots, which they call synths. And there was a conversation between a synth and the maker of that synth, and they were asking, like, what is it like to be you? And I had this idea, wow, exactly, what is it like to be you? You don't know, I don't know. What is it anyone else, you know, I don't know. What is it like to be you guys, for example? So like I presented my thesis in a way that makes sense. Well, the exhibition, I want to really point this out here. I know it's not related to languages or meaning, but as a former, ex-students of masters, for you to like thinking of, because before me in the fashion scenery, as far as I know, at least in my school, it was really not easy to see unorthodox methods to show and share your project. Well, it was like mine was quite different than the others, and I tried to make it as a working station, and I would like to show people how my brain works. So, for example, I hate to talk. Well, I thought I hate to talk. Well, apparently I don't. So I make an audio guide so people can take it. I didn't have to be there at all. People can take it and choose project, because I have several projects in one thesis, and they can go deeper in whatever they want to. And this is the map that you see behind. It is the map of my thesis, of my mind during when I was doing my thesis. And I want to focus on this part now, because like, what is it? It's, by the way, from, I reconstructed it. It's from Gaping Void, this image. Maybe you have seen it already. And I really like it because it really shows how that can be explained. So there are data around me, all around. I mean, colors, flavors, words, metaphors, I get them through my senses. And in some of them I got interested. So I look for specific, information about them. Then I have an insight. By insight, I mean an understanding. Oh, okay, this is if then, or any kind of logical, connection. And then it comes with a wisdom. If I know how to go there, if I know the way, how to reach those two, in between, what happened in between, then I got a kind of wisdom. Then I can apply this way of thinking to other things to generate other ideas. But this whole thing is connected, like the certain topics connected, I believe we can call it a knowledge, a curation of information. And I have to say here as well, like, I see intuition as well as the process as a tool, but like intuition is some kind of, works kind of like a muscle in your body, or an organ, if I might say. It's, or an antenna on your head. It's like, you can train it, you can enhance it. I am looking for the cyborg future. I would love to enhance this observational opportunities. This is the map of my intuition and how I use it, basically. So I will go deep in this, and it won't take long, I promise. Then I will go to language. But I thought it will be interesting for you to see how, because it's like all my students now, all my classmates before, they were like, well, this is interesting how you can really explain how you think, how you do things. I didn't know it before I didn't know it was a skill of mine before I studied it. It first started like with, I had this idea of showing my intuition and I want to map it, but I didn't know then. I was just reading an article about Descartes, and I saw the Cartesian system as a topic in that article. And I was like, yes, the Cartesian system. Yes, 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 it's perfect. So I put everything on that Cartesian system. Or I can maybe do this for now, or just maybe close. So there are two, in this axis, below is unconscious, up is consciousness, go away. And the x-axis is time. So it's me, myself, and I. Let's start from here. Like, with my sensory, senses, I collect data. I taste things, I hear things, I see things. I collect them very unconsciously. It's just coming to me, and I kind of register them as keywords, I might say. Then, from an multi-transdisciplinary curiosity, I observe, or I got information about these things. First, I document, and by document, I'm not saying, oh, I'm doing this it's like my way of documentation, which is basically screenshots and bookmarks. And then I Marie Kondo them. I just like, okay, this is interesting, this is not interesting, oh, this I don't care at all. So I filter in a way, and then I archive. and I hoard these things. And actually, I have to say, this is how I learn. I learn by observing. This is a screenshot of my computer in one, it's only one folder, and I have, I don't know how many folders like this. I have to create more. But I'm not a robot. I'm just a person with an OCD, I can say. And then going through time again, following the arrow, then again, unconsciously, I associate these things, I connect these things. I kind of have a brainstorm with myself, me, myself, and I suddenly solve a problem, I make a decision, I do something, I make something, or I think something. And I had an epiphany in these moments. I have epiphanies in these moments. And my methodology is like, if I understand that I'm thinking or doing something, I just stop. I rewind, I trace, I try to organize, I try to formulate. It's from a very consciously and in the form of an artistic research. And it's, we can call this a metacognition part, which is awareness and understanding of one's own thought process. So I'm observing my thought process. How did I end up here? What was I thinking? And I try to frame them, position them, reconstruct, I map, I narrate. This is where I design, I conceptualize, and I understand, most importantly. For me to understand something, I have to listen, I have to watch, and I have to write at the same time. It's very complicated. But I know, so I take my, I know how I understand things, so I take my time, or I follow my ways. And then, being in now, I share them, I featurize it, I curate it, I explain it, I make tools out of it, I make workshops out of it. But I have to say, being in the unconscious part here, it's important to be honest to yourself, because now we are so much in sharing and we don't want to say the wrong thing. So we just, stop our thinking process and try to say not actually what we are thinking, but what is convenient in that situation. And it's very confronting so it's important to be honest, and it's very, very confronting at sometimes. So you have to be in a comfortable place in your head. And if you have confrontations and things, I mean, you should talk with your friends, family. It shouldn't be if you would like to, of course. And it should go like a dialogue with yourself. And then you should analyze, question, and reflect on it. At least I am doing like this. And this whole process, actually, now I'm saying, I told McNan that it's the map of my intuition. But this is, I think, nowadays we can call it an unlearn, relearn process. How do I learn and unlearn things and relearn things? So this is quite a nice visualization of what I was trying to say. It's the cover of New Yorker from 1969 by Sternberg. And here he is observing himself looking at a painting. And he starts with Baroque and ends up with Tchaikovsky. In between, there are colors, there are fonts, there are even flags. It just goes like that in your mind. It's quite interesting to observe. And we call it karanfili karıncaya bağlamak, or karıncayı karanfile bağlamak in Turkish, which I haven't find the translation for that. So if there's anyone Turkish here understands Turkish, if you have a suggestion, please let me know. And then using this, I would like to say use the same code, because it's still very, here it's, this is why I decided to name this my workshop as frame of reference. because many people struggle with large quantities of information they receive, and they are sometimes they are unable to cut out the clear path through it. And I observe it mostly in the students, and I was observing it on myself when I was a student, because it was too much information and I couldn't handle it. So redefining my known unknowns helped me, or unknown knowns, which I will go in a second. And now I'm helping my students to build their own methodologies based on their very own skills, urge, likes, or hates. If you have watched T's first meeting, lecture, session, she was talking about this as well, which I found amazing. I'm because I was also very impressed with this. And now I will explain this. I mean, okay, Rumsfeld was the first, like one of the first ones who get attention to these things, who said it out loud in front of a public, let's say. And then I later learned that Zizek also commented this with this code, and he was talking about unknown knowns. And I was like, what is this? Then I found out this is called Yohei window. It was in 1985, American scientist, psychologist, sorry, psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever. And so, and this was used in management, you know, it was used in, it's kind of a heuristic exercise, and it's a model of communication and interaction, and a technique to help people better understand their relationship with themselves as well as others. I will go one by one, and it's very easy because it's so complicated when you say too many known in a sentence. I easily do this by saying, by putting I in the first one. So I know, and everybody knows. This is your name, your address, family details, personal appearance, like everybody would know this. And the known unknowns that I know, but nobody else knows, these are thoughts, feelings, hopes, fears, dislikes, shame, etc. And there are unknown knowns, which I don't know, but people know, like the others know. I mean, this is your attitudes in the others' eyes and the qualities they see in you, which not always you don't know that is a quality. And then there are unknown unknowns, which is the most interesting part. Actually, it is where everything is, I would say. And finally, we are going to start now after this long introduction. So a meme, this is very complicated, and I had, like, it was very, very hard to describe because there are so many memes, themes, you will see. So basically, a meme is a unit for carrying cultural ideas, symbols, or practices that can be transmitted from one mind to another through writing, speech, gestures, rituals, or other imitable phenomena. And memes do this through the process of variation, mutation, competition, inheritance, just to reach reproductive success, replication, in other words. And memes spread through the behavior that they generate in their hosts. So this is very important. And there's a study of memetics. It is based on kind of like an analogy to Darwinian evolution. And in Darwinian evolution, there's an evolutionary algorithm, which, if you are interested, of course, you can find it like in more detail. But basically, it is if, and then kind of an algorithm. And for example, Daniel Dennett said he's a very important philosopher in that, and evolutionist evolutionary Darwinist. So he says, design of chaos, he names this. It's variation plus selection plus heredity equals to evolution. And Genes are, you know, they mutate, they transmit, they carry information, so they are replicators. Humans, in other hand, is a gene machine and a meme machine. So memes make humans meme machines. I don't know if it makes sense when I say. By the way, Susan Blackmore, if I have to say, is a British writer and lecturer, and she is researching memetics and consciousness mostly, and best known for her book, The Meme Machine. And oh, sorry, I should have been here, sorry. And she's arguing that a meme is not equivalent to an idea. It's not an idea, it is that which is imitated, or information which is copied from person to person. And now I should have gone here. So as I said, genes replicates, but memes had to evolve. So they made humans meme machines, and now technology, there's something new, which is called technological memes. And now technology is a team machine, and basically a meme or a team, it doesn't matter, they have to evolve. We cannot stop, and they don't care, because like they are like information. They wouldn't care about us, about planet, or anything else. So teams and memes are spreading because they have to, they must. The important thing is to understand they have to. They don't have any other choice. So from this small information about memes, we can move to words, because as I said, like humans are meme machines. We generate memes, but we have tools to generate these. These are words, these are sentences, language, and science. If I have a red thread here, and I would like to start with what is semiotics. Semiotics is a study of science. So what does it means is, like, when we see, for example, a red light, that we need to stop, and when we saw green light, we can pass. And this is just agreed in something that agreed upon in the society. We have decided this is what it should mean. About semiotics, like this is also in the source link. There's a very nice guy who's doing this every time another topic. This one was semiotics, what the fuck? Because it sounds like something that we all know, and people are doing just for the sake of sounding clever, or theorizing for theorizing's sake. But understanding science is fundamental for the understanding of how and why meaning gets made the way it does. This is semiotic theory, but I don't know where I noted this. It's probably from a movie reading lecture or something, but I couldn't find it. But very, very shortly I can explain. So in semantics, there are codes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 main codes. It's the semantic code, is the hidden meaning, additional layer, you know, the photo you use, the representative photo you use, the words you use. It's mostly, you can say this, we always see this in advertisements. I mean, it manipulates, there's a hidden layer, there's an additional layer. And symbolic codes are images represents a meaning. You know, if we see a heart, red heart, it means love, or if we see a cross, it's about Christianity, and etc. There are action codes, which are elements of actions leading to events. So I remember actually the example of this. So there was a guy with a hand about to draw his weapon. So it means that there is something going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen, but there's an event going to happen. And the enigma codes are the elements of mystery and curiosity. It's like there's going to be a decision, and something is going to happen, but we don't know. So it's engaging the viewer in it. It's generating curiosity. And the example of this was like, if there is two men and there was a woman in between in a poster, in a movie poster, so it's obvious that she's going to make a decision, and who is she going to choose? This kind of mystery. And there are cultural codes which are appealing to certain people and or cultures, which is like, you know, we can say age, gender, sex, and nationality as well. And of course, guess what? They are calling the smallest unit is the theme. That's why it's so complicated. There are memes, there are themes, there are genes, there are themes. But the theme is the smallest unit of meaning recognized in semantics, let's say. And I want to share this video. It's very, very short. Yep.
Switch on the TV. What do you see?
Okay.
Switch on the TV. What do you see? The breaking news graphic, the scrolling text, the news presenter behind the desk. Read the signs, the hair, the makeup, the shoes. What is this story about? The rhythm of the words, numbers, colors. Why are these codes here? The music, the size of the letters. How do you feel? A news bulletin is a selection of signs, the flow of words, read of the autocue, the artifice of the presenter's cadence, the news voice, the gaze looking right at you, but through a lens. Visual standings for credibility, authority, legitimacy. Rhetorical motifs constructing the biggest myth of all, that what we are watching is unmediated reality. This is what Roland Barthes would have seen. The TV screen as a cultural text, and he would have unveiled its myths. Because to read symbols and signs, to interpret them, is the work of a semiotician. In the 1950s, Barthes started writing about popular culture. In his book Mythologies, he gathered multiple discordant subjects: food, horoscopes, religion, advertising, toys, photography, detergents. He saw this as elements of mass culture, imbued with ideology, providing society with the myths that once came from fables and epics. Barth said the starting point of these reflections was usually a feeling of impatience at the sight of the naturalness with which newspapers, art, and common sense constantly dress up a reality which is undoubtedly determined by history. Barth didn't just spotlight the myths that surround us. He pulled back the curtain on their ideological premises. He warned us against taking all that surrounds us at face value. The fonts in your daily newspaper, they don't just reflect meaning, they add it, they change it. The framing of this shot, what's the history behind it? The selfie, the latest representation of true individual. The stick, a seal of authenticity, of status. The subtitle, the voice as text. What could be more Bartesian?
Oh, okay. um, let's continue. I will check the chat afterwards because if I stop, I'm afraid to lose the my train of thoughts. And okay, this was also what I want to show you. These are two different websites. I'm going to share again. Oops, my Google Chrome. And it was really, really helpful for me. Oops. For example, it's wordwiz.com. Let's put a word in here. I will say, like, say, intuition. And this is amazing how this, is it shared? I hope so. Well, it is, I can do this forever, you know, and you can see how they manage, and you can see in this part, what is it? It's such a beautiful way to follow a word, a thought through a word. It's very interesting, and it might come handy in your, I don't know, in your research. And the other one is the visual thesaurus. It's the same idea with the word whiz, but this is with, you have to subscribe and pay some money. But the best part of it is, so this is the main screen. Here they share the word of the day, and they are doing this through, you know, getting the data from all the newspapers, all there's a list that which they follow, and they gather. So this week in culture, the words that has been used, it's so interesting to check what is it happening with the words, and especially this in these Corona times. I'm checking this usually, and it's such a different, it's so nice to observe, let's say. Moving on. Okay, and we come to the sentences. Words and how they are structured in a sentence determines your way of, our way of thinking. And I want to put this because, for example, this is the top is Turkish and the bottom is in English, and it is completely the opposite. And it says something about how Turkish people, I mean, it's not, but the way, and it's also very visible, for example, in comedy. It's so different. The comedy in English is so different than the comedy in Turkish, because the telling, the narrative is structured or constructed in a completely different way. And I am so interested in to see what happens in Arabic, what happens in Chinese, what happens in Japanese, what happens all these other languages that I don't understand. It's such an unknown for me. And so moving to language, I want to show you another video. Oops. I hope everybody's doing great.
Language sets us apart. Other animals communicate, but they don't have anything approaching the sophisticated grammar of human languages. How is
The sound is really low. We cannot hear.
so easily? Young children become adept in a new language very quickly. Since the dawn of philosophy, thinkers have argued about whether or not we have innate ideas, whether we are born knowing things, as Plato believed, or rather, as John Locke and other empiricists argued, the mind is a blank slate on which experience writes. An American linguist, Noam Chomsky, gave a twist to this debate in the 1960s by demonstrating that children learning to speak just don't have enough information to form the complex grammatical maneuvers that allow them to generate unlimited new and original sentences, yet they do so with ease. There's a poverty of stimulus. Something else must be going on. Chomsky's hypothesis was that there are inborn structures in our brain, what he called a language acquisition device, or LAD, which gives us a natural propensity to organize the spoken language that we hear in various grammatical ways. Without that, we couldn't get started as language learners. If he's right, language structure is hardwired as a kind of universal grammar. Our slates have been written on before we emerge from the womb.
Okay. And what about the other languages? Like we have seen in this time, this is an image, you understand exactly what it is. And the use of language, the use of the songs, and it was such a brilliant creative moment for me to see all these coming up in the first days. And again, like other languages, you know, sign language, it was important. And I just realized it afterwards, like back then when we were in the Gezi Park protests, we were using intuitively, but I thought it was intuitive, but actually it was from the Occupy Wall Street hand signs. And you know, this was, yes, approved, great, or this is, I disagree, and like, please wrap it up, kind of a thing. And I've been to beautiful, beautiful, beautiful forums, and just to see that it is possible to happen was a kind of hope for me. But again, like with the breaking of my hopes, it was quite a trauma as well. And I just last week saw John Oliver having talking about another topic, and he mentioned a guy called David Colvin, and because he was interpreting something another person was a government, from someone from government, let's say, was talking completely bullshit. And he was complaining about this guy's talent being wasted, because now this is what he actually does. He's I mean, he is such a talent. It happened in the Beyonce concert during Atlanta's Pride celebration 2019. Wow, this is mind-blowing. And well, I was very impressed. And like, I was thinking, why can't it be a new language for the activism, actually? And if we think these are the only languages, no, it's, well, we know now in science, in biology, forests can talk. They even have an internet, which like people are calling Wood Wide Web. It's amazing. And trees and all animals, or all plants, let's say, in the forest are talking through mycelium. It is a very interesting thing to look at if you're interested. And it's basically a fungi. And now we are going to a little bit to internet. What time? I hope I'm in time. And like, so the language of internet, the language of the computer, the language of the machines. And I would really recommend you to watch this Flight of the Conchords robots piece. They have a binary solo, which is unbeatable. It's the best thing I ever heard for a very, very long time. They have a binary solo. And so we don't know the language of the machines, and by all means, they can be talking about us behind our backs as well. And like the codes, I mean, C++ is a language, and coders can talk to computers in many coding languages. But when machines try to understand us, maybe it doesn't really go well. For example, you would heard probably the robot who committed suicide, and how Tay, the Microsoft bot, went bazooka in their own times. And basically what I want to say is, like, you can put a meme on top of whatever the fuck you want. Basically everything is a meme or a team now. Well, I'm going
just to make sure, Asu, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't know if my internet is just completely going ballistic, so if I make no sense, people tell me. You have only 5 minutes left,
Yeah.
just so you know. You might want to take some question. I kind of came in and out of your conversation, so I don't know if you're there, but just so you know.
Yeah, I will wrap it up. I know it was a little bit longer than I anticipated, but I will wrap it in 5 minutes, and I will try to answer quickly the questions. So there are, like, this woman, for example, is like, everybody was talking about the animal pictures in the caves, but she was more interested all other things, all other markings, like squares, circles, arrows, and everything else. And she's arguing that this must be the, well, we don't know. They mean something to the people who made those, and we don't understand because we are not there in the, you know, we can't understand. But she's not talking about writing at all. It's beyond, before writing ever. It's like between 10,000 and 40,000 years ago in the Ice Age time. And yeah, that it's evolved to writing, but we have to remember that early writing systems didn't come up from a vacuum, out of a vacuum. And someone came up with an idea to make a graphic mark, and it changed forever the nature of our communication. And I want to talk about very quickly about signs. For example, in Italy, when I was in Italy, I was like I had a very hard time to understand the signs. Like, where shall I turn? Shall I go direct? Shall I go left here? I don't understand. And in Iceland, I think their success comes from the signing. I mean, it's so obvious, because you can kill yourself in Iceland like this in 2 seconds. And they managed not to kill people with only signing, and they did it in such a good, efficient manner. And I want to go to, well, the last is the emojis as we know it. This is a new language. This is a new alphabet. And people are experimenting on this. It's very interesting to observe what's happening with that. For example, this Kelly, I'm following her from Twitter. It's like now they are experimenting on making the citation system from emojis, which is very, very interesting. And there's a book written only with emojis. It's called Emoji Dick. And well, it was a crowdfunded project. It's the translation of Moby Dick. It's beautiful. You can read more about it. And I want to stop here. So long, and thanks for all the fish. I'm going to stop sharing and check how everybody's doing. I hope you are all still live.